I'm Charlie Smith, the editor of Pancouver. This week, as part of our Beyond Chinese series, I'm joined by Kapa Arkieh. He's a Vancouver actor and musician who's won 2 Leo Awards. And when Kapa was a child, his family immigrated to Vancouver from Taiwan, but he remains connected to the island nation, where he performed earlier this year in the Jade Music Fest. Kapa also performed in the Jade Music Fest in Vancouver last year, where he just brought the house down with his Indigenous inspired raps. Kapa, I'm so happy to speak with you. How would you describe your work as an artist?
I would say I try to bring in everything in from my life, um, and incorporate all the cultures that I'm a part of into the music. And I try to incorporate everything from what my parents listen to, and then all the way to what I listen to, and then amalgamate everything into becoming something.
Oh, wonderful. How did you get into music?
Like all Asian kids, we all started playing the piano. I started playing piano when I was 3 years old in Taiwan. I think my mom really wanted to be in music, but because of financial circumstances at the time, so she became a nurse instead and was hoping that her kids would carry on that dream. And so started playing when I was 3. I got to Vancouver when I was 6, and I still continue to play. And obviously, as a kid, I just never, like all kids, we don't like practicing, right? So it wasn't until I started playing for churches, that like the churches that we were going to, and I realized that a lot of people enjoyed the piano, and I realized how good I was becoming. And at some point when I was a kid, I wanted to be like a classic pianist. Um, until I was a little bit older, and then I got influenced with popular music, and then it was all ship sailed. I was in this industry for life.
And what have been the highlights of your musical career so far?
It's been good and bad. I guess we'll just say the good stuff.
Yeah.
I was able to travel around the world. Back in 2017, I was in China, and I was kind of just touring around China from the north to the south. So I went from Beijing to like Xiamen, and everything in between. And obviously COVID hit, so I was back in Vancouver for that time. But in China, I was able to do things like the Rap of China. I was on a couple of festivals over there. Got to work with some amazing artists, rap artists, Xiao from Gosh Music. Um, and also what happened was during COVID, I was able to get some, I guess, music placements for a TV show, a TV series. Oh, now it's a movie. They turned it into a movie, but it was a documentary on crypto at the time because crypto was
Mhm.
the hype at the time. So someone asked me to do some music for them, so I was able to write music for that, and that got me 2 Leo Awards, for the original composition and the overall documentary. Um, and then I was able to play at Taiwan Fest in 2023, and then 20 at the end of that, I was also playing at J Music Fest, and then that ultimately became J Music Fest in Taiwan, at Hwasan Creative Park, I think it's called.
Yeah. How did it feel performing in Taiwan?
It was hot. And we also had to dodge a lot of earthquakes. I think there was like 2 earthquakes at the time. And then my guitarist, because he's never been to Taiwan, he's never experienced earthquakes. So I think it was like 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. I remember I was abruptly woken up by my roommate, and then he was like, "Hey," and I'm like half asleep. And I grew up in Taiwan, so I kind of knew him. And then I woke up, and he's like, "Hey, I think there's an earthquake." And I was just like, I had one eye open, and I kind of just looked at the ceiling, and I was like, everything's intact. And I was like, go to bed. It's too early for this. And then I remember it like half dreaming, half sleeping. I was telling him, I was like, okay, there's gonna be aftershocks, Joe. So just like relax, right? And then literally 5 minutes after, he wakes me up. He's like, "It's happening again." I'm like, "Dude, it's the aftershocks. We're fine. We're still alive." But
And-
the crowd was amazing though.
Mhm.
Very inviting, very welcoming. I think being able to play like the indigenous stuff, especially like the Amis culture, music. I think there was a lot of people that vibe with it. Especially just being home and playing in front of like the indigenous people. That was something that I've never experienced before, and I've never had the crowd sing the indigenous songs with me, so it was really cool to kind of see.
Well,
And
this is something I wanted to ask you was
yeah.
your family is a Mies, and it's the largest officially recognized tribe in Taiwan, is my understanding. And how does your Aboriginal heritage inform your music or your songwriting?
I think I'm just trying to figure out my roots. It's been a journey for me because I haven't when I was a kid, because of all the negative things that happened to my parents when they were in Taiwan, when they were growing up in like elementary school and high school. There's a lot of bullying that happened to them.
Hmm.
And so my parents wanted to kind of shy us away from that culture. So when I was growing up, I never really experienced anything like that at all through my parents. And all I've heard was just negative things about it. So I was kind of scared and I was like, I didn't want to associate myself with that title. So as I grew older, I got into kind of meeting other indigenous artists. I don't know if you know Sapor,
Hmm.
Rooney Sapor. She was here
Yeah,
in.
I interviewed DJ Support,
Oh,
right?
did
Yeah.
you? Oh, nice.
Yeah, Dungy. Is it DJ Dungy, is it?
Yeah, Dungi in English, but it's actually pronounced Rooney.
Yeah.
Her name
Oh, okay.
is yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. But yeah, so I got to meet amazing artists and stuff like that, and they were embracing the culture. And I was just thinking, why am I not doing the same? And so I kind of just dug into my family tree, and I was just talking to the elders, and it turns out from my aunt's side of the family, there were uh indigenous performers. I didn't even know. So
Wow.
they tour around Asia, doing indigenous dance and indigenous songs. And my uncle is one of the people that like he writes pretty much indigenous songs back in like the 1980s, which I didn't even know, which
Isn't
I
that
didn't even know.
amazing?
And I was like, whoa, he's like released records and stuff like that, and it's been on TV. And I was like, wow, like I just never knew about all this stuff. So just kind of doing the research, kind of just digging into the roots. I was just kind of amazed at all the things that I was finding, and I just feel like um, we just need a bigger platform for people to know about us. And I just wanted to use the music as that platform to be able to, share the culture and hopefully the culture will just live on through the music, through the art. Yeah.
And I'm curious, can you provide kind of more insights into the Amis people? Like what type of lives do they live in Taiwan or traditionally or even current? Like would you say are they artistic? Are they musical? Are they
Yeah, for sure.
fishing or, maybe all of the above?
Yeah. A lot of well, back in my parents' days, a lot of the Amis people were fishermen.
Hmm.
Lived by the coast, lived in Hualien, which is like by the water, by the
Yeah,
beaches.
that's where the earthquake was. Yeah.
That's why I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I am so used to
It's
it.
very sad. Yeah.
I'm so used to it. Yeah, my mom was there actually when the earthquake happened. And it was funny because she sent me a photo of the collapsed building, and I was just like, I was like, oh, it's just an earthquake. And then she's like, no, 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 it was like 8.9 or 8
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. This one was
Oh,
not your
okay.
usual earthquake. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so growing up, my parents like my grandpa was like a fisherman. That's kind of where they made their money. And a lot of the young kids at that time, they were all kind of doing fishing because that was just kind of the way to make money in the village. And a lot of times they're segregated. So like Hualien, like I guess the villages are kind of separated from the cities. It's separated kind of like by the mountains. So if you think about the Rockies, separating like the east and I guess west of BC. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So you have to go through mountain regions to get to Hualien, or you could take the train, but it usually takes a long time to kind of get around it. Um,
Hmm.
so a lot of the kids at the time they would like because of school and education stuff they would leave Hualien to go to the cities. So a lot of my cousins now and myself we're all kind of city grown
Hmm.
in a way. But I mean there's still a lot of like kids in the villages now that are living in those kind of impoverished areas where it's not that abundant.
Yeah.
But it's weird because like we're known if you talk to any Taiwanese people, a Taiwanese person, they'll say like, oh, that we're the Amis or the indigenous people are like very athletic. A lot of them play baseball, and they're known for playing baseball. A lot of indigenous people are singers or songwriters and rappers and things like that.
Hmm.
So, I think the culture and its roots, I think is just because the way that we used to communicate was through mountaintops. So we would have to kind of I wouldn't say yell, but almost like yodel, like woo, like
Interesting.
we
Yeah.
would yell across the mountains to be able to speak to each other. And I think maybe the genetics just was able to pass on, and that's just kind of been the foundation for us to kind of continue doing the singing and art and things like that. But I think I was talking to my aunt, and she was saying that it's like our next generation's our kind of responsibility to carry on that tradition and the culture. And now I'm just like, yeah, I could take
Well, I
responsibility.
think a lot of people don't know how mountainous Taiwan is because it doesn't look so big on the map, but I've
No,
heard the mountains are higher there than they are in Japan. So,
yeah, yeah, very.
and for yourself, like I'm wondering what it was like growing up in Canada as a Taiwanese Indigenous person, and whether people were even aware of that, or was it just something you kind of left in the back burner and didn't talk about much?
Um, like in my elementary days, in my high school days, yeah, didn't really touch on it.
Hmm.
I just kind of pretended I was Chinese, like the rest of the kids that I was growing up with, especially
Yeah.
in Burnaby. It was just I was in Burnaby North, so it was very highly populated with Asians. So I didn't really say that I was indigenous at all. I was just said, "Oh, you're Chinese." I just say I'm Taiwanese.
Yeah.
Didn't really say that I was of any race. But my close friends knew because I guess I because we're close, so I would just tell them. But usually I would just hide that identity because there's just a lot of negative connotations that comes with like being an indigenous, especially like back in 19 like the end of 1990s and then early 2000s. There was a lot of negative connotations come with it. So I was just like kind of scared to tell people about it. So
Okay.
uh,
And and you mentioned like Chinese. And
mhm,
Chinese is an interesting word because for some people it's a nationality,
mhm,
and some people it's a language.
right.
Some people it's a race or ethnicity or culture. I'm
Right.
wondering when you hear the word Chinese, what do you think?
When I hear the word Chinese, well, I know it's Chinese would be the people from mainland China,
Hmm.
all the cultures that go along with it. So, like the qi pao or the guzheng, all the instruments that comes from China, that I would recognize that all as Chinese. Chinese language, the characters and things like that is all part of China. So anything that's related to China I would just rec-
And do you speak like Taiwanese Hokkien or the Amis language, or do you speak Mandarin?
Yeah, I speak Mandarin very fluently because I had to work in China for the 3 years that I was there as
Yeah.
an artist. So I that's kind of where I got my chops. And then Taiwanese, like the Hokkien stuff. Bits and pieces because my mom is very fluent in Hokkien or Taiyu, and
Yeah, Taiyu. Yeah.
I and then same with my dad. But my dad, because of the Japanese occupation, he also spoke a little bit of Japanese too, because of
Hmm.
part of the education at the time. And Amis, I can understand it. I can say some things, but I'm not very fluent yet. I think my uncles are trying to teach me, because at some point we're gonna have to take, because we have to go back to the village
Yeah.
and be the leaders for the villagers, you know. Someone has to do the job, so I gotta excuse me, I gotta be able to learn how to speak it properly and things like that. But to communicate with my grandmother, I had to be able to understand and communicate. So
And are there any stereotypes or misunderstandings that you want to address in connection, say, with the term Chinese?
um I guess like there's a big difference between like the Chinese people that arrived to Taiwan after the Republic formed, and also the people that were originally there. I think it's not even a fine line. It's really black and white, and I think a lot of lines are blurred now in kind of like in a wide world scale. And there's a big difference because the Amis and any indigenous tribe in Taiwan, we're kind of Austronesian.
Yes.
Um,
Like
uh,
you're even related to indigenous people, like at least the DNA in
yeah,
Polynesia and
Polynesia,
Philippines. Like it was this
Philippines.
big circle through that part of the Pacific, right?
Yeah, there was a big migration that happened
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so I feel like that's where the segre no, I wouldn't say segregation, but where it's separate is that line. Because the lineage is totally different. Like, most people think I'm Filipino. It's kind of funny.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I'm here in Vancouver, a lot of people think I'm Filipino. So
And you've also performed on the Rap of China. You mentioned that.
I did,
I'm
yep.
wondering, what was that like?
Um, it was probably the most frightening thing I've ever done in my life. The production was huge. And you also have these massive pop stars that were your judges. And then the way to get in, it's funny because then the reason why I got in was because I was a judge, one of the judges here in Vancouver. I was one of the judges to have one of the kids perform in the Rap of China. And then the directors asked me to come and compete, and I was like, okay, that's weird. I just sent someone over to play, and I'm gonna have to compete with him. But yeah, I think it was a huge production type of deal. And as all TV shows, it just depends on how much airtime you get. And it depends on how crazy you are on camera to have them place you. But the experience was fun. It definitely upped my skill level in a way that I couldn't have imagined because there's so much pressure week to week that we're filming it. So even though I didn't make it very far, but it definitely helped my Chinese Mandarin.
And I haven't asked you about your acting.
Yeah.
What would you like to say about that?
I love it. I think it's fun. I'm the worst at memorizing, especially my own lyrics. Like, I have a show tomorrow, and I'm like, have to like kind of would do some homework on that. But I feel like acting is fun. I feel like it really taps into like your emotions and experiences that you've dealt with, and it's like another outlet. It's almost like another art form. But yeah, I think recently I've been on another, I can't say it because it's not out yet, but it's another production that's happening in Vancouver. And yeah, I guess we'll be on the lookout for it. But it's really fun. I love acting and stuff like that. But it just comes in, I don't really audition for stuff. They just see who comes and kind of sends me an email and be like, "Hey, we would like you to be in this movie or this TV show."
That's great. And where do you see your artistic career going from here, Gaba?
Well, my biggest dream is to really give back to the Amis community. I think that's my biggest thing, and that's what I'm. trying to work hard to be able to get myself more established and on a greater scale because what I want to do is I want to utilize the music and the funding from the music to kind of start an education center in the villages in Taiwan. Because my career and I'm in this journey, I realized that music definitely saved my life. If it wasn't for music, I think I would have been doing other things. And music kind of gave me an opportunity to go to different places in the world and experience and meeting people that are really unique and different. And I just want to be able to give that opportunity to the next generation of kids. And I know that in the villages, they don't really get that much opportunity. So my dream is to be able to go there and teach them production, teach them music, piano, how to play piano, guitar, and things like that. And help them to be able to find at least some sort of road that they want to walk down, you know?
That's fantastic. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time, being generous with your time. I've been speaking with Kapa Arkieh. He is a very versatile Vancouver artist of Taiwanese Indigenous ancestry. And check our YouTube, and you can see more of the Beyond Chinese interviews like this with artists from Vancouver.
Cool. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe.